All right. Hi, everybody. This is Miss Pruitt here. It's been a while since I've seen y'all, so I hope a lot of you are joining us today. We're talking with Susan Eichhorn Young, who is a vocal coach or teacher in New York City. So I would love to introduce you to her. And thank you for joining us. How are you?
Fine. Thank you for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Yeah. Just why don't you start with telling us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got started in it all?
Well, I've been teaching voice for a little over 30 years. And I'm originally from Canada. And I was an actor, singer, and still am, just not as much now.
Yeah.
But I have been working in New York for, oh, good Lord, off and on. I've been in New York since 1990, I guess.
All right.
And so my primary work in the city now is teaching. And I've been there, well, at the moment not, but
yeah,
but at the piano anyway, virtually, and been working with singers in many, many different genres on Broadway and in opera and cabaret and all kinds of different venues.
Yeah. What made you decide to become a vocal teacher? Did you have any training that helped you lead yourself to that decision?
Yeah, I mean, as a singer, what often would happen earlier on in my singing career was colleagues would actually come to me and say, "Can you help me with this?" It was kind of organic, you know,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how I started. And then I realized I really loved it. And so that's when it started to lead me a little bit further. And I do have a pedagogy degree from the Royal Conservatory from the University of Toronto as well.
All right. Okay. That question came from one of my students. Another student asked, what's a better way of saying, how professional do you think that you need to be in order to teach others about music? So is it something that you think that anyone who is capable of singing is then led to teach others or could teach others?
I would never say no, as I don't believe in that. I think everybody has to find their own path, but I think it's really crucial that if you're led to teach, you have to learn not just how to teach, but you have to learn the material and learn how to access the singer or the student of anything first, you know. Just because you can sing doesn't mean you can teach. You have to learn that skill set too, you know, with everything, I think, too.
No, I totally agree with you. Oh, I already asked that. I am so sorry. I have all my questions together. So you said that you help a lot of singers in a lot of different genres. How does that come to be? Just through people that you know, through friends and colleagues? How does your teaching change depend on what genre you are helping a person with?
I think for me, because I do perform and have performed in multiple genres, I have access to what those genres actually require. So singers know that I can cross genre well, and that's often still, even in a digital age, it's word of mouth.
Yeah.
You know, who is working with whom and how that functions. And so, you know, the general gist of starting would be what that voice needs technically. And then the stylistic technical things are then applied to how that voice is developing. So it's always starting with the voice. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Are there some key elements that seem to connect some of these genres together? Like some skills that might connect them together?
Yeah, I mean, the voice itself, I always like to talk about the voice like your voice in its underwear. Technique is like your underwear. So if that doesn't fit well, nothing's going to feel like you can carry it comfortably, right? Mm-hmm. So every voice then has to find its unique underwear. And I think the basic training of that is breath and musculature, resonance, balance. All those things are crucial no matter the genre you're in. So oftentimes when we're working just on that, if you were listening in from the hallway, you wouldn't necessarily know who that was or what genre they actually specialize in.
Okay. I like that way of thinking. That foundation is really important to be able to build. Yeah. That's something that I try to teach with my students is I try to give them that foundation so that they can use it no matter what type of genre they want to sing. I don't have the opportunity to do a lot of hip hop or opera as such in a choir classroom, but I really do try to lay that foundation for my students. I did have another student who asked about the genres, like how is, I'm having to rephrase some of these questions.
Sure.
Are there different ways of teaching these specific genres? That's very broad. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. I think, if I can be so bold,
Yes.
It's more the stylistic, technical things, learning what the style, how the style informs the voice. So
Yes.
if we stay with the underwear analogy, if we look at every style as an accessory and an outfit, so then you have to learn what accessorizes well and learn how to develop that particular skill once the voice itself feels like it's workable, right?
And just listening to that genre, is that enough?
No.
Or right? What are
Not
some
at all.
other ways that?
Well,
like,
this is
trying
the
to
physical,
get familiar with.
Yeah, this is the physical training that's required. Just listening isn't going to get it in your body because the singer is an athlete. Absolutely, right? And you know, the physical manifestation of the sound that you're creating, the actual maturity of that is way later than a lot of singers realize. And when you're really young, it's hard to reconcile that. But the beauty of it is that you've got such a long arc to develop with, so that you don't have to feel like you have to have it all figured out before you leave high school. Because it's just not going to happen physically, you know. But the listening is crucial in order for you to then kind of see what appeals to you. And then you try stuff on, because that's the other thing. You may look at something and say, ooh, that looks fantastic, but it might not feel like you want to do it once you try it on, you know. So I think as singers, we have that luxury of saying it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can try stuff on and say, not feeling that so much. Let's try something else.
Yeah.
And as time goes on, maybe something you didn't like when you were younger actually fits better when you get older.
No,
you know?
I definitely agree with that.
So that's kind of how I function. Like, that's how I look at things in that way, so that it doesn't feel like you have to make big, bold decisions and never change your mind.
Yeah, I love the idea of it being an arc. I think that's something that I agree that sometimes high school students have a hard time grasping, like the process and like figuring out your process, and that your process is going to change over time.
Absolutely.
That's really beautiful. I love that. What did your process end up looking like? Like, what did that look like for you personally?
I started in straight theater very young. I grew up in a very theatrical household. My dad was a director. And so my first onstage experience was as an extra when I was 4 in a show he was doing, when he just needed an extra kid and threw me up there. And I got bit by the bug. So I started in straight theater. I did a lot of concert work, more contemporary pop kinds of things, younger. And a lot of music theater. And I didn't start to study really formally until my late teens.
Okay.
And, still did a lot of theater, a lot of straight theater, a lot of music theater. And then over time started to do more classical training, realizing that actually made my theater singing better. And then I started to move more into opera and concert work, symphony work, that kind of thing. And then started to work through all those genres all at the same time. Back and forth.
Yeah, that's pretty great. I also I didn't have any training until I got to college and started doing that. I really love jazz, and I found that they went really well together, and the classical training helped me with like breath control and being able to do like agility passages in jazz music and things like that they really went hand in hand.
Absolutely.
And I realized that hip hop is not my genre for singing. I don't have the voice for it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? You just got to figure out what works for you.
Exactly. And what you feel comfortable, what feels authentic when you put it on.
Yeah.
You know?
Have you ever run into like some difficulties with teaching others? Like maybe they're struggling with their journey, or I don't know, like any difficulties?
Well, I don't look at it as a difficulty. As a teacher, how I function is I'm kind of, I mirror what's in front of me. And so sometimes you have to mirror something back to a singer that maybe they haven't had a chance to look at, or they're scared to see. And so the idea is to create a very, very safe place for them to explore what they need to discover about their voices, their artistic journey. All of those things are such an important part. So I never think in difficulty. I try to help them find the challenge, and then we work out ways to accessing that and getting things stronger and easier. So we're creating always behavioral patterns vocally, right? So then it's not an all or nothing or a right or a wrong. It's just a new choice in order to discover what they can do.
And do you think that it would be difficult to do without a teacher or someone to help them with that journey? Like I know we have several students. Yeah, we have several students who I know that this is what they want to do professionally. They want to be that star on Broadway, or they want to be the next singer. And how easy or not easy will it be for them without some type of coach or vocal teacher to help them with that journey?
Well, I think you have to think long term. If you want to have a career, you really need a team around you. So you need that. Just look at the great athletes in the world. None of them, even at the top of their game, are without a coach. They all have coaches, right? And so you, at the end of the day, you're still the person who walks on those boards and delivers or doesn't deliver. So it's on you always to take the information and translate it and make it work for you. But to have that team of people around you, be it, voice teacher, several different vocal coaches, because they all specialize in different things, your dramatic coaches, your dancing teachers, all that teamwork around you helps you to formulate and develop as an artist so that you can be healthy and work, start to explore what that journey is for you, and what you may think you want may change as you just continue along. What I thought I wanted to do at 17 is not what I'm doing now at all, because life takes you on and you gain more life experience and start to figure out, what else might be there for you. So I think that would be always the big thing, especially with, high school singers. Be open to possibility and don't pigeonhole yourself, because then it limits what's possible.
I agree with that. Looks like we have a question that I do want us to get to, that was posted in our live comments. So the question is curious if you have advice for actors who aren't necessarily singers about caring for their voice and helping to develop.
Okay. Developing just the instrument, or developing the voice as a singer?
So they wouldn't necessarily be like in my choir classroom. Maybe they are predominantly dancers or actors, but what are some things that they could do to help take care of their voice and help develop that on their own?
I always hesitate with that, only because if they're going to be a dancer in the business, they're going to have to learn to sing to some degree, right? Same thing with actors. It's still your voice. So you still must develop that. So on your own, I mean, you've got the internet at your disposal. I mean, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly, obviously. But if you're in a choir class, and you're learning how to sing in choir, you've got a teacher in front of you, right?
Let's
So
say the voice as a singer.
sorry, Connie, you keep cutting out. I apologize if I'm waiting on you. It's just because I'm trying to catch you for whatever reason. There's a little delay for some reason. Sorry.
Okay, I don't know. Hi guys, it's Miss B. Miss Pruitt is a little delayed, so I'm not sure what's going on with that, but I'm wondering if maybe I should bring in a student. I don't know yet. Let me see. Think that. Thanks, guys. Hang tight for 1 second. Let's see while we're waiting if there's any other comments over here. I think we're good to go. Well, let's bring in, I think we're going to have Angelita first. Let's see if I'm going to take, hello. There we go. Here's Angelita. So why don't you hit us with your first question, Lita, okay?
Okay. My question is, what kind of key aspects do you think each singer should work on, rather that being genres they should explore, and also like for people who want to go into musical theater or want to go into more performing arts aspects, what things should they work on?
I think whatever your skill sets are, you want to get them as strong as you can before you audition for whatever post-secondary schools you want to go into.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a crucial part of it, is just making sure you're ready, you know? Not waiting till the last minute to decide and then trying to scramble. So whatever you're doing throughout your high school career, you want to just keep building on that. Start thinking about where you might want to go to post-secondary, you know, how you want to develop that. And the consistency is the key. Like, don't wait, you know? I mean, it doesn't mean you got to be doing stuff till you drop, but that you want to kind of create that consistency so that you don't think, I mean, singing is an interesting thing because sometimes we forget how athletic it is, so we don't practice. And yet, you know that if you're doing something else athletic, or you haven't been in a dance class in weeks, you're going to feel that the next day when you suddenly go back to one, right? So voice is the same. So it's the consistency. I think that's the most important part. If you can stay consistent in how you practice every day. It doesn't have to be hours and hours a day either. It doesn't have to be a lot of time, but just that you're consistent with it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I don't know if I'm supposed to ask another question. Or
sure. If you've got another one, Lita, go ahead.
Personally for me, I struggle with finding a mixed voice or like having a healthy one. So, just what do you think? What's some advice to actually find a healthy mix in everyone's voice?
Well, that's a tricky question, just because I don't know your voice. It's all of this stuff is very personal and specific to your instrument. The mix is basically your chest and head all mixed together, resonance-wise. That's really what it is. And for girls and women especially, this is the hardest part of our voices forever. Sorry to tell you. But it's going to be that grungy part of your voice for a while until you kind of learn how to stretch it. At your physical age, a lot of those muscles are simply not fully formed yet. That's why it's so hard to really find the balance of it. So I think being specific with making sure that your breath doesn't slow down when you're going through it, and it's going to feel airy initially when you're working on it, only because we want that breath out to kind of moisturize everything so it will stretch properly. And then start to find, what I find is, with girls especially, your E vowel is your happy place. That's kind of like your voice in its underwear vowel when you're working on your mix, because it kind of gives us a bright and a dark in the voice comfortably without feeling fuzzy. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So it's important then to just start to practice using just that vowel with whatever onset helps you. Like if you want to use an S or an SH to start onsetting into, and then the E vowel, and just do little sirens and just start to stretch it to mix it together, because that's literally what that means. You're just mixing resonances together, and you don't have to make it more complicated than that. And just know that as you're stretching, it's not always going to sound vibrant yet, and that's okay. That's age appropriate. And then you're not going to push, you know? So if you start in that middle part where you hate being first, and then let things kind of move around, and then you go a little lower so that chest voice feels a little richer, and then go a little higher and let it feel lighter, that starts to mix the stretching together. So those muscles get full access to you. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does.
So that's what I would suggest as a starting point. And gradually that just gets stronger. It's just like lifting weights. You know, I mean, you can wish you had a bicep, but until you start to lift the weight properly, it's never going to happen, right?
Right.
So it's that idea. You want the form first, and then lo and behold, you'll go to pick up the weight and, oh, there's the bicep. So if you just trust the breath flow with whatever vowel can get you vibrant first, then that starts to stretch together gradually.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to see if we can get Miss Pruitt back on here.
Great.
And I'm not sure if we can. So in the meantime, am going to bring in another student then. Thank you again so much for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure.
And Tamia. Hi, Tamia.
Hi.
And you've got a question for Miss Young?
I do.
Fantastic.
Great.
Okay. So I just wanted to know, in regards to, in college, definitely having back-to-back shows, and previously in high school having back-to-back shows, what is the best way to preserve your voice when you're sick and you have to go on regardless?
Isn't that the most gross, disgusting thing ever when you have to do that? Oh, I know. It just gives me goosebumps when I know you guys have to do that. Sometimes you just have to kind of live like a monk. You know, you have to stay off the phone, text everybody. The vocal rest is probably the most important thing, and just your physical rest. Mm-hmm. You know, the sleep is crucial, and that is with everything, right? Steaming is great. Anything to kind of keep you moisturized. Mm-hmm. That's the most important thing. So between the resting and the steaming, those two things are crucial. And anytime you go and see a laryngologist or whatever, that's the first thing they're going to do is put you on vocal rest. So you're not talking or singing. And sometimes if you're run down, you want to build your immune system before you get sick, so that hopefully when you do get sick, if you get sick, it won't last very long, right? Yeah. So it's almost preventative care is crucial, to make sure you're doing everything to stay healthy. And if it means you just can't be out with friends before a show for a while, if the show's important, that's what you got to do, and that's the hard part always, because your energy is going to be up and you're right. Yeah. But those kinds of things, to find out what do you need to boost your immune system and what do you need to stay rested. Mm-hmm. And if you can start that before a show, and actually before tech week would be great, because that can burn you out. The tech week can be worse than the performance, right? Because of how much time you have to be in the theater. I would try to do that before you even get started into tech. Mm-hmm. Because then you've got a fighting chance to fight off the bugs if they get in at all. And if they do, it won't last as long or won't be as intense.
Yeah. And also, this is just a random question, since I'm really curious of how training will be once I go to college. And, I know it'll be much different from, previous training, if training at all during high school. So I just wanted to know, what to expect and what to be prepared for in a way for college type musical theater-esque training.
It's pretty intense. And so again, your health is crucial, right? And it's going to be a lot of changes anyway, so it's going to be an interesting balance because you're going to have new friends and everything. But theater school tends to be very intense and very long days, and then you have rehearsals and things after class. So you're going to have voice lessons, you're going to have voice coachings, you're going to have lots of dance classes, you're going to have your theater classes and your acting classes, movement classes that are different than dance classes. So it's packed in, it's pretty intense. So again, it's more about you just really learning how to organize your time well, making sure that you give yourself rest time, and also knowing that you're going to have to plan your practicing around your class schedule. So it's going to just demand your focus. So any chance you get to rest, take it. Don't fill more time with more stuff. And if you're really type A and as many of us are in theater, we will then oversubscribe our time. So I think, the exciting part about going to theater school is just getting into a group of people that love what you love, and then just making sure that you really schedule your time comfortably.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Thank you, Tamia. All right. We do have a question from our little peanut gallery here.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, Miss Dale, Jennifer Dale says, do you have any exercises for helping students learn to lift soft palate on purpose? Now, those are words I don't know.
Okay.
So, so you're talking straight to her.
I don't. Soft palate release is a function of muscle structure. So trying to lift the soft palate without a motivation around it, to me, is kind of at cross purposes. If you yawn, it lifts, right? It always responds to breath. So it's the breath that is moving in and out is going to help to stretch those membranes. But it's really, we've got to learn how to stretch the musculature around it more than just the palate. So I use a lot of NG work with singers. I wouldn't do a whole lot of that with teenagers just because those muscles are still developing, so they can get tired really fast. It'll get really itchy fast. But if you use like an SH to an NG, and what it does is it'll sound like we're working at cross purposes because it closes that position, but it strengthens the muscles that govern the soft palate position so that you don't have to just try to lift the palate on its own. I hope that makes some sense.
I hope it makes sense too. Again, it's a little, I'm like, I know those things exist, but for me, okay, let's see. Miss Pruitt is back. Let's see if we can get her working again.
I hear her giggling.
Oh, I hear her. I know she's probably laughing at me. I don't know what these things are. Are you back? Sort of. Oh.
Did she freeze again?
I know.
Oh, there she is.
I am not. Sort of. I think that I am, and all you said does make yes. No, I don't want to freeze. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna smile the whole time. So if it does freeze, it'll be pretty. Okay, I hope it doesn't freeze. Did it? I don't know the answer to that. It's kind of, we can kind of hear a little bit. So I will try my best to ask another question. Go ahead. Before it freezes again. I have no idea.
Oh no.
Nope, she's out. I love you so much, but I'm kicking you out. Okay. So so let's see. I've got, a question that I have too. So, I do direct students and stuff. I don't teach vocals. I let other people do that. But, you talked about having students find a good vocal coach or find a coach. How do they go about doing that? How do you know who knows what they're talking about and just decided, hey, I'm going to be a vocal coach? What advice would you give some of our students in finding one?
Well, I mean, again, if you go to other professionals, and that can be like a conductor or, someone like that who would know some of the other professionals in the community that they are in, who teach and who coach, because it's not the same thing. and be able to recommend. And then, you know, it's really about then getting in touch with those people, finding out who they are, what they're about, having a chance to have a conversation with them, maybe having an introductory lesson with them to see how that fits together. I think the big thing always to remember is you're never stuck, you know. You don't have to feel like if you start with someone and it just doesn't feel like it's working, and that can be for a multitude of reasons, maybe personalities don't work, you know, whatever, you know, that you can't change and go to another teacher or another coach or both. You know, that's a crucial part too, because we have to connect on some level, not just on the pedagogy, right?
Right.
But I think even just to look, like, if you don't know any voice teachers or voice coaches personally, you know, you ask, you know, some of your friends maybe who they go to, or you go to a teacher at school who's a conductor or a director who knows people. You know, it is very much a word of mouth. And sometimes too, you just start exploring on the internet and seeing who comes up and start to read and find out about them and what they do and see what kind of jives with how you feel.
Sure.
And then start exploring that, you know.
Well, you mentioned that a vocal coach and a vocal teacher are not the same thing. So what's the difference for
the
us who
voice
don't know?
teacher is the person who really works on the technical aspects of the voice and the building of the vocal instrument with the singer. The vocal coach is the person who works on all the musical ideas within the repertoire that the singer sings.
Okay.
Yeah, in a nutshell. Some of us do a little of both, but generally speaking, they're separate. And certainly, you know, there are some coaches who very much specialize, like some specialize only in contemporary music theater. That's what they do, or they do the pop rock, or they do the traditional, and they really have a finesse about what their knowledge is that they can pass on to their singers. So some of us have coaches for many different genres.
Sure.
Yeah. So we just go to them for specific things.
Great. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Absolutely. Ms. Pruitt in the background says tips for maybe expanding vocal range. Do you have any tips for our young singers?
The big thing again is don't overextend too fast. Think of this all athletically. So if you know you've got tight muscles, you're not going to suddenly try to do the splits, because that might not be a good idea. You know, some of us are more flexible than others, and some of us, you know, can drop into the splits no problem, or we can learn how to do that. Some of us will never do the splits. And the range is very similar because it's musculature, right? So it's learning how to stretch and massage all of that stuff vocally first before you start to extend the range. And so if you're thinking always about this like physical behavior, just like you would with all the other muscles in your body, you're not going to beat yourself up when you don't have that high note, because you wouldn't do that if you just felt your hamstring get tight.
Sure.
Right. And that's something I think as singers and people that use our voices, sometimes we can get very neurotic because it's intangible. And so you think there's something wrong with your voice when it just might be stiff muscles that you haven't stretched yet. So it's, again, you know, learning how to elasticize all that.
Sure,
that opens up the range.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah. So about your experience itself, what has been one of your favorite experiences, either performing or teaching, coaching, that comes to mind in your vast?
Oh boy, that's a good one. There's so many. I mean, I always love, it can go as small and significant as a breakthrough in the studio with a singer who never thought they could and suddenly can. You know, I think those ones are so exciting. And also, you know, to watching someone make a debut in a role that they've worked so hard to achieve, that's exciting. You know, as a teacher, I mean, and it's one to the other, right? The private and the public. The public doesn't get to see all that private, personal achievement from day to day, and that's just as crucial as the big public moments. You know, I think just seeing singers claim what they really are about and finding those aha moments. Those to me are the best, truly.
I can absolutely agree with that. Yeah, as a teacher.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. We're going to close out here in just a second. Let's try one more time and see if Miss Pruitt can get her last question in. Oh, I think maybe. Oh, let's hope it. I'm so sorry that I've listened to all tiny words here and there. I'll paste them together later. Everything that you've said that I've heard has sounded wonderful, though, and is really great advice for our students. I just want to thank you so much for that.
Oh, my pleasure.
Would you mind leaving us with any other like words of advice for your students, not just singers who are wanting to go into the business of being a professional, whether they're acting or singing or whatever, any words of advice for them?
Trust your gut and surround yourself with people that you trust and that can really give you truth, no matter what it is you decide to do. Study is not just for the people who want to be professionals. Study is for everybody, you know, and you are no less if you say, you know what, I'm going into tech, but I love to sing, then sing. And you are just as important as the person who wants to try to have a professional career. So what you love, what you have passion for, explore that in any setting you're in, because being an artist and having passion for something that is creative is going to affect every part of your life. So don't push that aside.
I very much agree. I think that is wonderful advice, especially for students who take choir, but not necessarily that's what they want to do with their lives. Like, I think that it is important, if that's something that they enjoy doing, that they continue to pursue that, because it is something that you miss. I know it's something that I missed. I started out as an English education major, and that first year I was not in a choir class and didn't take any music at all. And that's how I knew that that's the path I needed to take, is when I didn't have it, I missed it, and I knew that I needed that in my life. So yes,
so
I very much agree. It is so important.
Yeah, it really is.
Just to be a person, you know, not even just to all of it together.
Yeah, the arts are just such a crucial part of who we are as a human being, you know.
They are.
And no matter whether you pursue it or not, it's got to be part of your life if you love it.
I agree.
So if you love it, just take it on.
I very much agree with that. I know that we're going to have to wrap up in a few minutes. I didn't even know if we talked to Tamia. Yes?
Yeah.
Did we? Okay. I figured that we did. I'm so sorry. I heard none of that. I will go back and watch this later to hear what you said, because I'm sure it was fabulous. Yeah. Are there any other lasting thoughts that you'd like to leave with?
Well, I'm scrolling through the comments too. And I know, you know, because we haven't gotten to everything, because I know we're on a time, we don't have all the time in the world for this, but I want your singers, your students, and your teachers too. Feel free to reach out to me on my website. You can send me a message, so that if there was a question that came to mind and you would like to email me, contact me through my website. I'd be happy to answer anything I can via that platform as well.
Great. And they can just, it's your name, right? Susan Eichhorn Young.
SusanEichhornYoung.com. Yep. And then they can just go to the contact page and send me a message. I'd be happy to answer anything I can.
That would be wonderful. Thank you for even providing that. I'm sure so many students would appreciate it.
It would be my honor.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. And even if I was not here the whole time, thank you so much.
No worries.
I know the information I know that they got a lot of this information. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
Of course. And thank you, Mr. Sawinski and Ms. Brazard, for running this, especially